Yo, what's up guys, TrickzKamikaze here, and today we are going to be discussing a very controversial topic about Aang versus Korra. Now I'm going to let it be known, I'm not going to be biased in the slightest. I love Aang and Korra, but there are way too many videos out there that just love to dick ride Aang. Like, I get it, y'all grew up with him, but it needs to stop. Also, I'm expecting a good amount of dislikes, but I honestly don't really care. Like, I'm just going to give my opinion, and if you don't like it, well, hit the dislike button, I guess. So without further ado, let's get into this Aang versus Korra discussion. Okay, so first off, let's discuss Korra's losses, because that seems to be the main thing everybody decides to go for when they're talking about Korra versus Aang. And I'm just gonna put this out there, just because Korra lost multiple times to people that are way stronger than anybody in Avatar The Last Airbender doesn't mean that she's weak. So just for a quick example, let's discuss Korra's enemies versus Aang's enemies. Okay, let's go to Amon. Amon was one of the most powerful people in Korra. He was one of the only people that could bloodbend without a full moon, besides from his father Yakone. And we have to remember just how overpowered bloodbending is. The only person that's ever been able to break out of it without the Avatar state is Korra, or at least she was able to break out of it without Avatar state or being able to bloodbend herself. Now compare Amon to Zuko from season 1 of Avatar The Last Airbender, and there's no comparison. Amon would absolutely slaughter him. Honestly, Amon could probably slaughter Zuko from season 1 with ease, but only one controversial topic to that. Okay, so next up we're going to be comparing Unolog versus Azula. Okay, I'm going to say this right now, Unolog is a dark avatar, and that instantly puts him like a level above Azula in any way. Even like the final boss Azula that was able to fight against Zuko, who had enhanced fire from the dragons, and Katara, Unolog will still be able to slaughter her pretty easily. And he's also very smart too, because he was able to manipulate the Red Lotus, and that's how he became the Dark Avatar. Unolog was also able to destroy several battleships with the power of the Dark Avatar. Azula has never been able to do something like that with her straight raw power. Unolog also has the ability to spirit bend, and with spirit bending he can actually destroy someone's soul. And this could be seen when he threatened to destroy Janora's soul when he was keeping her held captive. He was also able to turn into a giant astral projection, which was basically a Susanoo from
Rotu Shippuden.
And this Susanoo was basically able to make large energy beams which were very powerful. The form actually had more powerful water bending than his actual Dark Avatar state. It also had tentacles. Okay, now up is Azula. Azula is actually one of the most powerful and most skillful firebenders of all time. She even probably had more firebending skill than her own father. Not to mention her flames were blue, which indicated that her fire was way more stronger than anyone else's. She's also one of the most intelligent people in the series that we've ever seen, almost being one of the few people to actually conquer Ba Sing Se. She was also one of the few people that knew how to use lightning bending in the original Avatar series. So clearly Azula has the smarts, she has the power, so why am I putting Unolog over her? Well, I'm gonna tell you why. One is the raw power of the Dark Avatar. Azula actually has nothing in her arsenal that's gonna be able to actually defeat Unolog, especially if he goes Avatar state, and especially if he goes into his astral form. The only thing that could possibly come close to actually hurting him is lightning bending, and again, that's actually a common thing in Korra, and plenty of people know how to fight against it. Not to mention that he knows spirit bending that can destroy souls and corrupt souls. And to go back to the lightning point, someone might say, oh well, if he's in his astral form he's gonna get hurt by it. We actually have no feats proving that whatsoever. Also, Susanoo Unolog was able to fight against Korra, and Korra at this point was using cosmic energy to try to subdue him, and cosmic energy is obviously way stronger than anything that lightning could do to him. So my conclusion to this battle is Unolog will win easily. I will say though, when it comes to straight hand-to-hand combat, I will put Azula over him, but even if that was the case, it still wouldn't be an easy battle by any means. I get that there's a lot of Azula fans out there that love her and want her to win, but feats beat headcanon, okay? Feats beat headcanon. And there's no evidence to suggest that Azula has a chance against beating him. Not to mention Azula was getting juked by a 12-year-old Aang. Granted, he is an airbender, but still, he was 12 years old. It's kind of embarrassing. I wouldn't let him do me like that, I'm just saying. Okay, next matchup is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be Zahir versus Ozai. Okay, let's start with Zahir is actually one of the most powerful people in Avatar, and that's because he was able to acquire airbending, and he was just a master fighter all around even before he got the airbending in the first place. Not to mention that he has the ability to fly, which only 2 people have been able to use this ability. And besides being a pro fighter, Zahir is not afraid to kill. In fact, he's killed the Earth Queen. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Ozai isn't afraid to kill, but I am saying that he did lose to a 12-year-old Aang that wasn't even trying to kill him. During during the solar eclipse where he has way more powerful bending than usual. Not to mention that Zahir damn near beat the Avatar in her Avatar state, and Korra is a way better fighter than Aang when it actually comes to straight combat. So the fact that he was able to do that with limited airbending, he was locked up for 13 to 14 years, and in my eyes that easily puts him over Ozai in my opinion. And granted, Korra was poisoned heavily, and that definitely did nerf her a little bit, but that was still an insane feat that he managed to accomplish. Compared to Ozai, whose only real feat is basically injuring and scarring his son, who was a child at the time. Not to mention he almost lost to Zuko when Zuko had the chance to redirect his lightning towards him on the solar eclipse. And again, he lost to a 12-year-old Aang that had just come out of the ice. Like, that's not really that impressive. So for this roundup again, I'm easily gonna give it to Zahir because Zahir honestly stomps, like honestly no joke. And Ozai really let a 12-year-old grab his chin hair like that. Could not be me. Okay, that's pretty much it for the matchups, but we did kind of forget Kavira, which she is actually really underrated. Kavira is actually a very powerful bender and she really knows how to fight. Okay, now let's go to Toph because you guys really think she could beat Korra, and I think that Avatar bias is really going to y'all head. Toph does not beat Korra in a fight. Stop it, guys. Like, stop that, please. 1, that Toph is old. 2, they were training. 3, Korra was poisoned. And 4, Korra was not going to try to fight Toph full power. Like, come on, guys. Not to mention that Toph lost to Aang in the arena. And granted, that was a 12-year-old Toph, but this Toph is most likely even weaker, most likely, because she is really old. So to make my point, no, stop it. Toph would never beat Korra in a fight. I love Toph. She's actually one of my favorite people in Avatar besides Aang and Korra. I know it's kind of basic, but still, she's actually one of my favorite people. And I'm telling you, there's nothing proving that she stands a chance against Korra. Okay, now on to Kavira. I'm not going to go too in depth with Kavira, but honestly, if you just search up any Korra fight versus her, you will see just how powerful of a fighter she really is. Like, I honestly think she's a better fighter than almost anybody in the original Avatar, besides maybe Azula, but even then I still might put her over Azula. Like, she's just that much of a good fighter. Okay, now that we discussed both of their enemies, let's go back a little bit towards Korra's losses and why I don't think it's justified that she kind of gets bullied for her losses. Okay, so first fight, she went against a bloodbender. Anybody in the original Avatar is losing to Amon, and even like afterwards, like adult Aang stands no chance against Amon because he lost against Yakone. And it took Aang's Avatar state for him to get out of his bloodbending, while it just took Korra's physical strength to get out of Amon's bloodbending. So already we have a big feat of Korra that Aang does not have. All Korra had to do was use her physical strength to get out of the bloodbending, while Aang had to use his Avatar state. Next up is Unolog. Again, Korra went against another dark Avatar who was basically almost more powerful than her, if not more powerful. He could spirit bend, destroy souls, corrupt souls. He had giant beams that he could attack people with. He had a Susanoo. Like, you can't tell me there's nobody in the original Avatar that will be able to defeat him. Not to mention that Aang can't even use spirit bending. And yes, I know a lot of people are going to get energy bending and spirit bending confused, but spirit bending is a component of energy bending, and Aang can actually use the spirit bending part of the energy bending. Okay, so next up is Zahir. I'm not going to go over him fully again, but I will say that Korra mostly lost to him because she was poisoned. She actually could have beaten Zahir multiple times. Not to mention that Zahir was an airbender, and that's actually the opposite of Korra's natural ability, so it would make sense that she had a little bit more trouble with him than anybody else. And next up is Kavira, and I'm just gonna say again that Korra actually had a way tougher time with Kavira, mostly because she still had the poison inside her and she had PTSD. A lot of people forget that Korra is still human and that PTSD and poison is heavily gonna affect how powerful she is. Okay, that's it for the villains. Now I'm just gonna say some random stuff that I hear around the community a lot, and I just kind of want to debunk. One is that Aang has way more talent than Korra, which is honestly just false. Like, that's not even comparable. Like, it's honestly just way too false. It took Aang 12 years to learn one element, and granted, he didn't have teachers, yes, but it took Korra as a child to learn 3 out of the 4 elements as a child, and I'm pretty sure she didn't even have a teacher. And the reason I say she didn't really have a teacher was because the people that came to pick up Korra to actually train her, they didn't come till after she learned how to use 3 of the 4 elements. And a lot of people seem to forget this, that 1, Korra didn't learn airbending because 1, she didn't have a teacher, and 2, it's kind of the opposite of her natural element. And what I mean by that is that Korra's always been like a brute, like she's always been a fighter, so of course it would kind of be hard for her to focus on being an airbender, which is all about peace and like being in your mind and stuff. Not to mention that Aang struggled with learning fire and earthbending, let's not forget that. Another thing is that people hate that Korra lost her connection to the past lives, but seem to forget that Aang almost basically did the same thing. In fact, he did die. If you remember when Aang was meditating to go into the avatar state, and right before that Azula shot him with the lightning, he was actually killed, but Katara was actually able to bring him back. And if you don't believe me, Aang literally says that he was gone but he was actually brought back, heavily implying that he actually died but Katara's spirit water was able to bring him back. Okay, now let's go to abilities. Korra has all the 4 elements, she has spirit bending, she has energy bending, and she has metal bending. Aang has the 4 elements and he knows how to energy bend. So already at the start we see that Korra has 2 more elements that are way better than his. And like I said before, spirit bending can actually corrupt the soul, so don't forget that. Like, that is a very big advantage against Aang. Not to mention fighting styles. Fighting style wise, Korra easily beats Aang in almost every way. She was also taught to fight how the White Lotus and by Katara and Zuko, who are way more experienced at this time than when they taught Aang how to fight. She also has crazy endurance because she was fighting Zahir for a long time while poisoned. Not to mention that Aang couldn't even learn metal bending because in the comics Toph says she even tried to teach him how to do it, but he didn't have the stomach for it. I will say that if Aang was able to subdue Korra and take her bending away, he might be able to win, but there's nothing to suggest that she wouldn't be able to get her powers back anyway. There's nothing to disprove that Korra can actually bring her own bending back. Granted, Aang was the one that brought it back for her, but now she has the ability to do that herself. But I would most likely give the W for Aang in that instance. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, Korra absolutely stomps Aang. Like, this isn't even a competition. She's a better fighter, has better fighting styles, has better bending, she's more better at bending than Aang, and she has the guts to actually learn metal bending. Not to mention that a lot of people don't seem to realize that Aang never really beat Ozai, the Avatar state did. And what I mean by that is every time Aang went into the Avatar state, he was unconscious. It really wasn't him fighting, more like his past lives fighting Ozai. Not to mention that Aang can't even use the Avatar state at will, but Korra can. And people always try to say that Korra's avatar state was weaker than Aang's because she had losses, but she always lost when she was handicapped. Okay, now let's go to avatar states and how Korra lost hers and how that would actually affect the battle. So a point that a lot of people try to give Aang is that he still has his past lives and he can learn stuff from them, but there's never really been anything to suggest that Aang would even want to do that. In fact, Aang has purposely severed ties with avatars before. He's done it with Roku in the comics. And because he basically doesn't really believe that the past avatars experience don't really have anything to do with modern times, at least when it comes to advice. I will say though that it will come in handy when it comes to actual straight up fighting and techniques, because he will get all the past experiences of the past avatars. Mainly Kyoshi, because Kyoshi was by far like the physically strongest avatar, but that doesn't necessarily mean that would help Aang win, because Kyoshi was the strongest not just by like techniques, but her body was actually like the strongest of all the avatars ever. But Aang would still need a strong body to work with the bending that Kyoshi was able to do, because like I said, she was the physically strongest avatar. Now let's go on to Korra's avatar state. A lot of people say Korra's avatar state is weak because she doesn't have her connection to her past lives. And I will say there's some truth to that, but in exchange for that, Korra now has a better connection to Rava than almost anybody in the Avatar series besides Wan. And Korra is already a master bender, so she doesn't really need the experience of all the other avatars. Not to mention that it's highly likely that her connection with Rava will actually make her a more powerful avatar, because Rava is the source of the avatar state, and that's the source of like the full power, like straight raw power of the avatar state. So in that case, it could either really go either way. If you think that Aang would be able to beat Korra with all the past avatar experiences, even though she's a master avatar herself, she has 2 bendings ahead of him, and she has way more experience fighting way tougher opponents that Aang has never been able to fight. So for my conclusion, I honestly say that yes, Korra is way stronger than Aang when it comes to feats, power, technique, bending. Like honestly, it's not even comparable. Like she is literally a stronger version of Aang. And I also have a clip of the creative avatar saying that if Korra were able to get her hands on him, he would lose the fight.
Enemy. So in a way, they would always like defeat each other, or it would just be like the worst stalemate, you know, something like that. But that
like, yeah, I feel like they wouldn't. I mean, they would talk it out. Yeah.
I think it's like, you know, I watch a lot of fighting, and it's like they'll say like, you know, 9 times out of 10 I'll beat that person, but there's always that one, and I feel like 9 times out of 10 Aang would just get away. And there's always that one time Korra like gets a hold of his like cowl and then just beats the crap out of him.
Now, like I said, I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this video, but again, I don't care. I'm not gonna hold your hand. I'm not biased. I truly believe Korra would win, and you're pretty much gonna expect that on this channel. Like, I'm not gonna be biased for most stuff, I think, most likely. But again, if you do want to support me, please leave a like on this video. I greatly appreciate that, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more videos like this. I am going to make a tier list for the strongest avatars in order, so if you don't want to miss that, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell at the top so you don't miss out on that. And without further ado, I will see you guys later. Bye guys.